Hello and welcome to Thrive After 45, the podcast where we redefine the significance of you, for you, by you, because of you. I'm Denise Drinkwalter, a midlife renewal coach, here to help women embrace their power, purpose, and potential. This show is your space to explore what's possible when you prioritize you. Through inspiring conversations, expert insights, and real stories, we'll uncover how to navigate transitions, rediscover joy, and thrive inside and out. It's time to let go of guilt and fully embrace the life waiting for you. This is the Thrive After 45 podcast, and it is your time to thrive for you, by you, because of you. It is such an honor and a privilege to welcome Dr. Shafer Stedron to our show today. Dr. Shafer is a multi-passionate powerhouse, a physician turns transformational coach, podcaster, speaker, best-selling author who brings a unique and refreshing voice to the world of growth and mindset. With a medical degree earned in 2011 and a life coaching journey that began in 2024. Dr. Shafer has dedicated herself to helping others rise above limiting beliefs and embrace a life of intentional transformation. She is the voice behind the inspiring podcast Talks with Dr. Shafer and the author of two thought-provoking books, including international bestseller Cracking the Rich Code, Volume 16, and her upcoming release, which we're going to chat about, I hope, The Boy and His Brightly Colored Blocks, which has actually just launched, right? May 6th in 2025. Her message is clear and consistent across her platforms, whether she's on YouTube, TikTok, Spotify, or Instagram. She meets people where they are, guides them through with compassion and clarity toward personal freedom and purpose. Through her content, coaching, and recently launched publishing house, Dr. Shafer supports both individuals and businesses in challenging their mindset blocks, unlocking potential, and stepping into a version of themselves they maybe didn't even believe was possible. She has roots in music and decades long dedication to writing and editing add a creative dimension to her work that's both powerful and deeply personal. Dr. Shafer, we are absolutely thrilled to have you here with us today. Welcome to Thrive After 45.
Denise, thank you so much for having me. It's such a pleasure to be here and to be in this space where you are creating an environment that encourages us to thrive. Because as obvious as it sounds, that it's what we should do, if we really take stock of our lives and how we have over time set them up, we may find, I think many of us find, that we and those around us have constructed a life that doesn't necessarily allow us to thrive as we really should be.
I love what you're saying because I noticed this too, and what I see, and let me correct me if I'm wrong or add to this piece, but what happens is we don't even understand what thrive really means because we haven't probably experienced what, or if we have, it's in little snippets and then it dies, right?
Yeah. I love what you said about in your introduction about that you should be thriving, right? Like you should be thriving and do it for you because of you. And I think that's really important because when we talk about development, sometimes it's more palatable to discuss the benefits of personal development on the people you love, on your children, on your spouse, your partner, at work, the people that you serve through your work. And that can be a good icebreaker for helping people to start to take those steps and start to, instead of leaning out and doing everything for everyone, start to care for yourself, understand yourself, development yourself. And often the first bite of it the first taste we have of that is by, oh, I'm going to get better for the people I love because we've been doing that our whole lives. We've been doing everything for everyone else. So I really love how intentional you are about saying you are doing this for you because of you.
Exactly. And the other piece that I think is very interesting is that nobody else can do it for you because you're the only one who has the capacity to do it for you, by you, because of you. So when you take that time and whatever that needs to be for you, I know a lot of my clients feel, oh, isn't that selfish? Isn't that, giving? And that's where we start to do the disruption of the belief. And I know you do all kinds of great work around limiting beliefs. And sometimes we don't even realize that we have a belief system that is limiting us. How do you help people even uncover limiting beliefs per se?
Hmm. Well, I was just leaning into what you were saying, and it's really fun when coaches talk to one another because we're like, "Ooh, yeah, like what tools? What is your process? Because it's so enriching and interesting to learn how we all are trying to approach this because coaching is a different skill set than anything you've ever done before in your life. Most people, when you really learn what it is to be a coach, think, wow, that's fascinating. It's just listening and asking curious questions and not having an agenda. Well, how hard is that? That's really
Ooh.
hard. It's really hard because we are all so trained to do all of those things and to have these conversations that are kind of like a game of tennis. And so we've hit this ball back and forth. We had this conversation, lots of words were said, they were spoken, but we walk away and that's that. Right? I mean, how many great memories did you ever form? You may enjoy tennis, you may enjoy what it brings to you physically, but during that back and forth, you're not making those memories that you're going to remember in the final moments of your life and say, gosh, I'm so glad I had that. But when you sat with a friend or a colleague and you stopped talking and you got out of your own head of thinking, how
Mhm.
can I make this better for this person? You sat with them, you heard them, and you just went along with them on this journey rather than trying to decide where do they need to go on the journey. And through that, we've been so trained to think that's a failure because we didn't solve the problem for them. But what we did was empower them through our presence. And as we, learn things like coaching, as we learn things about curious questions, and we recognize, no, asking someone the curious question and really hearing the answer, and then gently challenging, okay, so why do you think you need to do that for that person? Did they ask you to do that?
Mm.
How many times has someone asked us that question, because we might avoid that sort of question because that might be interpreted as an insult or as shaming.
Mm.
But it's such a great question to ask the people pleaser, the overgiver, the overstretcher. Did they ask you to do that?
Mhm.
And then to say, okay, they didn't. And then this thing happened, this, inevitably bad thing happened because you did something for someone that they didn't ask for, they didn't want. Okay, let's get out of the consequences of that for them. Why do you think you felt compelled to do that? And
Mhm.
getting down to the heart of the matter. And it's so beautiful. And I know I've gotten down into a rabbit hole of coaching, but
It's okay.
it's so inspiring to have conversations with people like you because these are the moments and the connections when we learn how to communicate in this very different way, that it's not like the tennis game that we walked away from, and that was that. These are how we make really genuine, meaningful connections with people and learn about them and create stories that we're so proud to tell about our own lives.
I love that, bringing yourself into the conversation through a connection, not through the lens of helping them solve a problem that you don't even know really or understand the depth of what they're going through. So what's coming up for me as you're sharing your thoughts and brilliance, of course, is the power in active listening and really grasping what that is. When I was teaching many years ago, when I was a behavior resource teacher, the power of not only active listening, but observation, I couldn't ever explain the importance of observing. So now I'm even looking differently at the way that I have conversations and the way that I observe others in conversations. So there's so many moving parts, and when we allow ourselves that openness, that ability to just be present in the energy and the conversation, everything can change for both all parties, however many people are involved in the conversation. Do you find that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Bring yourself into the conversation. And, you talked about tools, you hinted at tools. How do you do that? How do you start that with people? And I think one interesting thing to do if you find that you're a people pleaser and you're a space
Mm,
filler, so you walk into a room, let's say it's a party, and let's say you've got kids in school, and so it's people you don't really know that well,
sure.
right? And you're hopeful to make connections with them, to bond, maybe to have someone to go to coffee with on Saturday morning, to connect with over the shared experience of life and having teenagers, etc.
Right.
So you walk into the party and if you're that people pleasing person who's trying to basically set out these almost like fishing lines, trying to get someone to
Mm,
bite on them,
yeah.
and you're setting all these hooks of, okay, the weather's too bland. So I know that this is popular in my area. I'm going to do that. Or I know that this is popular with them. I'm going to do that. And you're kind of setting the stage for having conversations that you may not even care about. So now you've started the conversation and you don't know where to
Mm,
go with it. There's the awkward silence. Well, nice meeting you. And you walk away and you're wondering, why am I not making friends? Why is it so
mm,
hard at this stage of my life to make friends? And a big part of that is starting to reset the way we try to connect with others, even in a very casual way,
hmm
to instead of trying to figure out what everyone else wants from us,
mm,
to show up as our authentic selves, as you said, to be very intentional and an observer and a good listener, and then decide, is this someone, and this is something I really work with my children on, is this someone that I would like to spend more time
mm,
with? Right? Because that is really where the magic happens is when you meet someone that you want to spend more time with. And that's mutual. They have this mutual experience. And it's not that you have formed some sort of transient
right.
conversation, what you hoped was a bond over something that doesn't really matter to you. That's not going to be a relationship. And then you'll have invested some time, which all of us have very little
hmm
of, and you'll go to coffee and you'll go home and you'll just kind of think, what am I doing with this? I'm not forming the connections. It just doesn't seem to work. Why is it happening? And so when we feel that dissonance in our lives, instead of looking outward and
mm,
blaming, oh, I just can't connect with this person, they're that or this. Or maybe we're from a different social stratosphere, whatever you want to tell yourself it's not working. I think it can be really helpful to look inward and think, who am I showing up as? And
hmm
is it me? Because if I'm showing up as someone else, of course, I'm not making those deep, authentic connections with people that I really want to make.
Is it helpful for people to look at what you're saying and go, okay, so what friendships do I have in my life right now that I truly, truly value, to help them reflect back what it is that makes that so valuable and how they can reframe themselves in new environments to be more authentic at the end of the day?
Yeah, there's something you said earlier that I don't know about how you are with coaching and with conversations like this, but for me, I'll have a phrase pop up or a visualization or a color, something that really resonates with me. And it may just be the way my brain works, but something you said earlier really made me think about how we remember how someone makes us feel. We don't
Mhm.
remember what they say, right? And something you said earlier really resonated with that quote for me. And so I think a great place to start to really just kind of get rid of the, oh, well, I have this connection because our kids do this together. I have this connection
Right.
because, we did this, whatever. And to really get down to the heart of the matter of, I have X amount of time and energy. Who in my life
Mm,
re-energizes me rather than depletes me? Because
nice.
maybe I'm at a phase in my life where I have literally nothing left to give. And you and I were talking before we came on air,
Yeah.
like I'm kind of in a place in my life where I have very limited resources. And so if someone's in my orbit, it really needs to be something that energizes me. And I think when you take stock of not only your friendships, but what you're using your energy on in general, which
Mm,
is, it could be anything from as big as, do I want this big house?
yeah.
Does this big
Yeah.
house bring me joy and energize me? Or is there a laundry list of things that drive me crazy
Yeah.
about the fact that I have this big house? It can be from friendships to the size of your home, where you live, your job. All of these are opportunities to kind of check your batteries
Mm,
and find out, like, do I need to just change the batteries, go about this differently, or do I need to actually an update of my iOS, right? New software,
right.
because the old system is depleting me and I need a new system.
And everything you're talking about and sharing, I'm smiling from inside out because you are talking about looking at everything through the lens of for you, by you, because of you. And when we do this work, and I don't like to call it work because I like to call it awareness and growth. Because as soon as the W word's put with it, people are like, oh, but I can't do that because I don't have the time, blah, blah, blah. If we
Yeah.
reframe and start to do it from our center, I can tell you, all your clients, all the people that you touch with your work, know that when you start doing this work for you, by you, because of you, your what I call sphere of influence will change around you without you having to lift a finger and make it happen because your energy speaks and it changes everything, right?
It does. And one thing I noticed that I don't talk about often, but I've done a short talk on my podcast. I tend to do guest episodes and then I do short talks where we talk about
Mm,
mindset things and also from a neuroscience
mm,
perspective, the science behind that, right? And the importance of changing our habits and changing our beliefs because those are actually wirings in us.
mm.
This isn't woohoo stuff.
Yeah,
This
good.
is really real. It's our neuroscience. It's tracks in our brain that lead us to follow different behaviors and habits that if we don't disrupt them, and you used that term earlier, you have to disrupt. And that's where I think when you use the term work, it is work and it's work in the sense of like a workout, but for your life, not just for your muscles, right?
Mhm.
Workouts, when you start them, they are painful.
Mm.
I can remember I had a period of time where I wasn't exercising much and I had a C-section with my last child. So, things were cut, muscles hurt, my body
Yep.
didn't bend the same way. It didn't feel good. And then when I exercised really intentionally
Yeah.
again, and I
Yeah.
got my body to a place of strength, I mean, there were times where that really hurt, especially, around the side of my incision. Ouch, it was really uncomfortable. But
Yeah.
once I got past that breaking to build
Yeah.
point of working out, then
Hmm.
I got to a place of strength. And I will never forget. It's such a silly example, but it is the moment. And it's funny because these are the little moments in our lives that we are assured that we're on the right path. It's the little
Mm.
things, it's not the big stuff. It's the
Hmm.
little things. I was cleaning my bathtub, and we have this really big, kind of unusually large, strange rectangular bathtub. And to clean it, you have to kind of like act like you're Spider Woman a bit.
Yeah.
And it was always a bit uncomfortable and strange. And I'm Spider Womaning
Yep.
over it. And I felt great and I had great balance and I felt strong and I could bend and move in ways that I couldn't before. And I thought, oh, this is what it's all for. It's not to look better. It's
Yeah.
not to lose weight. It's not for clothes to fit differently. It's so that when I am living my life, my function is so much better and more comfortable. And I have this feeling of like, wow, I can do things I couldn't do before. And it's the same with our mindset. It's painful at
Mm-hmm.
first to
Mm-hmm.
make those disruptions. But once you get through that messy middle of everything being hard and new and you're practicing and it's awkward, and maybe you feel like I haven't done something new since I was in college or since I was in
Yeah.
grade school. Once you get through that point and you're really living your beliefs and living authentically and in alignment with who you want to be, the feeling of strength and accomplishment and just, wow, if I can do that, if I can stop living that way and start living my
Right.
life this way, what can I do? It's so exciting and it's worth all of the work because it is work. It's worth the investment in you.
Right. Right. I love that. The investment in you because you are worthy of that investment. You mentioned earlier all the things we do for our children and our families. And, there's never a second thought if your child needs support for whatever purpose you're on it. You will drive them, you will do without a second thought. And my goal is to help women worldwide have that same response that they would have for their children, right? For themselves. Yeah.
Yeah, that's beautiful because you can't be there for your
No.
children if you're abandoning yourself. And in that moment, you
Yeah.
may feel, and I've had a client who was very self-abandoning, and it took years of
Mm-hmm.
work because there was such a deeply entrenched belief that pouring 100% out of their cup and giving the cup away to their children was love.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it took so much time for this individual to have him to understand that he was modeling self abandonment.
Yeah.
And that is so important to try to flip that perspective. And for many of us, that comes from we were trained in early life to be very self abandoning to show our worthiness and to earn our right to exist in our family system, for
Right.
example,
Mm-hmm.
or in our work system, depending upon what someone's circumstances were. But that's not a relationship.
Right.
You're a
Right.
tool. If that's your role in a relationship, I'm using air quotes for listeners,
Sure. Sure.
you're just a tool. That's not an actual relationship. And so when you model that for your children, that the closest people
Yeah.
to you are tools for you and they are expected to give up everything, that can go one of two ways.
Mm-hmm.
They can become like you
Yeah.
and they can be people pleasers and oversharers, overextenders, and give up everything they have, which we don't want for our kids. Or they
Yeah.
can learn to expect that this is how people treat me. They give me everything and they expect nothing in return,
Mm.
and I have no responsibilities in our relationship. And neither one of those are what we want for our children.
Absolutely. And what you're saying, I think this is a golden nugget. How are you modeling? Because you're being watched, whether you believe it or not. And so, what is it that you want to model? Do you want to model give to exhaustion, or do you want to model give back to myself so that I am as equal as everyone else in my sphere of influence? Yeah. Tell me, we've got to dive into your book. I'm sitting here looking at the beautiful colors. I know it ties into some of the conversations we've been having. Tell us about your.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I'm holding it up for listeners who aren't seeing the visual of the audio visual aspect. So I'm so proud of this
No.
book. It's really a passion project for our family. And What it does is it goes through the day of a little boy who has something that's called pathological demand avoidance. So, when we look at things like PDA or pathological demand avoidance, so that's a behavioral profile. It's not a diagnosis. It
Mm-hmm.
is not unusually seen in children who have autism, so children who
Mm-hmm.
have a formal diagnosis, but it doesn't have to be seen in children with autism. And we see it, people who are on social media, you're probably seeing a lot about PDA because it's coming a lot on your For You page, talking about even adults that have this pushback that's outsized when they feel a demand or an
Mm.
expectation on them. And this can manifest as something that's relatively small. So, for example, looking at children, like refusing to eat dinner or
Right.
to sit at the table. I can tell you, my son only now will actually sit, and not all the time, at the table.
Mm-hmm.
But for years, he needed to stand on his chair
Yep.
because that expectation to sit was really stressful.
Yeah.
And we as parents or caregivers, you can force that
Mm.
child to sit. But that's not really connecting, and that's not really understanding the why behind why is this so important, and we don't
Yes.
understand it, right? It doesn't necessarily make sense to me if I don't have this behavioral profile.
Right.
But if we take a step back and connect with this child and try to understand how they feel in this moment, if that allows them to get through dinner, because otherwise, having to sit at a certain time with a certain type of food with certain people that maybe they'd rather not sit with, maybe they're mad at sister or whatever it is, there's
Right.
so many demands on them in this moment, and they're choosing something they have control over.
Mm.
And so, what this book is about is trying to normalize or destigmatize the perspective of a child who has this behavioral profile.
Right.
This little boy, as the title says, it's called The Boy and His Brightly Colored Blocks. Now, this little boy loves his brightly colored blocks, and he dislikes anything that takes him away from them.
Right.
And so, as we know, in an average day, especially once we get to preschool age, if we have other people in the home, if we have other siblings, if we have dogs, like we have to, just for ourselves, we have to eat, we have to bathe, we have to put clothes on
Right.
at least before we leave the house.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
At least a certain number of clothing that can be stretched a little bit, but we've got to wear certain
Right.
things.
Yeah.
Got to wear shoes. We've got to eat. And then, oh, maybe we have to get sister from school. Maybe we have to take the dogs out. And what can happen is a lot of children who have PDA, they also may have autism. They also may have a lot of special interests. And so there can be one thing that they really hyper focus
Right.
on. And that can either be a really frustrating thing for a family. You can say,
Mm-hmm.
oh, you're this age. I really wish when I was that age, I really liked playing
Right.
outside. I liked
Right.
playing with sticks and running around or playing this fantasy game. And all you want to do is play with your blocks. Or you can try to understand
Mm.
what this connection means for the child, and you can try to use it to help them navigate the other challenges in their day. They have control over this toy.
Yeah.
They have control over what they do with this toy.
Mm-hmm.
And then when we have inevitable moments throughout the day where they don't have control, how can we use and model how important it is for them to have this thing that they do have control over? How can we
Mm-hmm.
use that to model how we empower them throughout their day to have less dysregulation? Because when they feel a demand, they go into often a state of fight or flight,
Right.
right? It doesn't always look like they just refuse to eat or they
Right.
refuse to sit in their chair. It can manifest as a tantrum, breaking
Yeah.
a toy, or even physical violence,
Right. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And we see
Mm-hmm.
this in kids. So we can call that bad behavior and go down that rabbit hole. That I think at this point in time, thankfully, most of us, in education and parenting, we've figured out that doesn't really work.
Yeah.
instead of doing that, we can try to connect with them rather than correct and figure out what's behind the behavior
Yes.
and find out ways, how can I empower my child? And so one of the things in the book is there's an itchy clothes moment, right?
Yes. Hmm.
A lot of kids have this sensitivity. Well, mom's figured that out,
Yep.
right? So she puts something on, oops, I messed up, it's itchy. And
Yep.
instead of saying, no, you're wearing that because that's what we've got, she says, this or this,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
Or we need to take a bath and you have to leave your toys. But actually, you don't have to leave your toys. Do you want to bring your toys with you? Do you want to bring your blocks with you? And then the
Hmm.
boy thinks about it and he's like, oh no, bubbles, sinking, the drain. Oh no, mom, I do not want to take my toys with me because I might lose them. But as simple as that sounds, mom has made it his decision and
Yeah.
empowered him to make a reasonable decision because kids can make really reasonable decisions given the opportunity.
Yeah.
And if we help them stay as much as we can, not going to happen
Hmm.
all the time, but try
Of
to help
course.
them stay in a place of regulation. Because if we push the issue and try to counter control with further control, we're just going to get into that fight or flight
Yeah.
stage where we're not learning, we're not connecting. They're not going to do the thing we want them to do, and
Right.
we're not going to feel good about what
Nope.
transpired between us.
It's going to say it's a no-win situation.
No
Totally.
win.
Yeah. Nobody. Yeah. I absolutely love what you are saying in two things that came up for me, correction versus connection. Let's flip it and make sure we've got that connection piece. And one of the things that I remember so vividly was my role as that behavior resource teacher and principal, was the why behind behavior, because there is a reason for everything that people do. It's just trying to uncover where that's actually coming from, that source, so that you can, like your book sounds amazing, and I can't wait to get my hands on a copy of it. We've got four grandchildren now, so I might be ordering quite a few.
Oh, thank you. I would love to hear what they think about it. One thing I will
Hmm.
say that my experience reading it with children, with the advanced copies I have, I
Yeah,
take one in my bag with me and I'll pull it out and just kind of,
sure.
oh, mom, dad, do you mind if I read this with your kids and kind of see what they think? And the experience that I have with children is they just love the boy. They think he's so funny
Mm,
and they see themselves in the boy. And these are children who may not have autism,
yeah.
they may not have PDA, but this allows them to see this boy who is having these really big
Mm,
emotions. And it's illustrated in such a beautiful, colorful way. Mom is calm, mom is creating a
mm.
space of acceptance. And
Yep.
so these children are seeing, oh, okay, that's not a bad kid.
Oh, yeah.
That's a kid
Love
who's
it.
having a feeling,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
he's moving through it.
Perfect.
And so it's really fun not only to read for kids who see themselves like a replica in the boy
Right.
because they think it's hilarious and they love it,
Sure.
but children who can have empathy
Yeah.
for their friends who are having this behavior instead of coming home and saying, oh, Timmy was being bad today at school. They may come home and say, Timmy was having a big emotion today and
Exactly.
we were able to help him.
I love that. And the thing that I'm seeing a connection to is we as adults have big emotions too. Thank you very much.
Yes.
And
Yes.
and so we can absolutely take a look at that and go, okay, so do I need what's going on? Where did that come from? Because sometimes those big emotions, you don't even recognize what's going on if you haven't done that infamous work we've been talking about. So thank you so much for this conversation. So good.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And I think that's one of the things that I hope that the mother will also give a big hug, a virtual hug to
Yeah,
families that are reading it to say, hey, you're doing a great job. Mom
exactly.
makes mistakes in here too. She does things that make him angry that she quote unquote should, if we're going to use that horrible word, should have
Oh,
known better, right? She makes mistakes too, but she responds calmly. And I think it's so important that when we are around people who are dysregulated, that we learn as we have, to circle back to the top of our conversation, to stay really centered in who we are, stay in control of our own nervous system. And if we're feeling that we want to counter control, I look at that as a really challenging C. That's not the C I want to be in, the counter control.
yeah.
I want to say, instead of, ooh, I feel that control, I feel those emotions, I feel even my blood pressure going up, my heart rate going up, maybe my respiratory rate's going up. I feel my body is trying to meet you in kind.
Mm-hmm.
In this moment, I want to stay centered in who I am and recognize those emotions are yours. So that's the moment where I lean
Yeah.
out
Yes.
and say, I see you. I see how you feel. And I leave myself out of it, because if I lean in and bring myself into it and we just start mirroring each other, it's that vicious cycle, and it's not going to get us to connection.
Absolutely. And I mean, my experience, because I used to do a lot of training in crisis prevention intervention as a trainer. And so what you're talking about is bringing me right back to no matter what's happening, we can help mirror others to come down to a calm level and then look at what we need to look at after. But right now, let's just keep everybody safe. And that you have a lot of opportunity to help change the direction and the course to help another self regulate. When I love what you're saying, you lean back instead of in. So thank you for that.
Oh, it's my pleasure. And even with something, starting with simple things like even changing the tone of your voice, the volume
Oh,
of your voice, or the rate of your
yeah.
speech, there are little ways that you can try to maintain who you are and how you feel in those moments. And so we can
Yeah.
find little things that work for us to try to stay centered.
Love it. Love it. Thank you so much. I knew this was going to be an amazing conversation, and it has been that and more. We have in our show notes how people can get connected to you, how to get the book, all of the good things. Are there any words of wisdom which you haven't already shared? Because I know you've got so much. Anything you want to share with our audience before we say goodbye?
I know we've used a lot of tools and some nice quotes today. For me, especially in midlife, we've done a lot of growing in our lives, right? And we've developed in a certain way. But as we said earlier, sometimes we have to take a step back and say, is this who I really am? And can I continue to grow where I am with the current environment I have? Or am I going to get stunted, almost like a plant in a box? And so, one thing I always try to encourage listeners and clients to do is, if you can't grow where you are, go where you can grow. So I hope everyone who's listening now, especially as we are in spring and we are literally seeing the world blossom around us, take a look at yourself and your life. Are you blossoming? And if you're not, and you can't grow where you are, where can you grow? Where can you go so that is possible?
Thank you so much. Where can you go to grow for you, by you, because of you? It is time to thrive after 45. So thank you again, Dr. Shafer, for spending this time with us today. I wish you all the best. And to our listeners, make sure you press that follow and like button. Please give reviews if it resonates with you, and we will see you on the next show. Goodbye, everyone.